This is Brannon House Live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon House.
And welcome to the broadcast on this April 1st, 2025. We're already at April. Well, tonight we're going to have on a slew of great guests. My first guest is with an organization known as American Truckers. You can, in fact, go to the website, americantruckers.com. And I'm going to have Shannon Everett on tonight. I actually heard Harvey here testifying before the State House in Arkansas. Played it on my radio show today. Phone lines lit up with over-the-road truckers. What if I were to tell you that we have illegals in America, illegal aliens in America, driving 18-wheelers, and they're killing people? I'm going to share with you about a crash in, Austin, Texas, Logan? And a couple other places. Illegal semi-truck drivers. These are non-U.S. citizens. And apparently the Biden regime made a way for these men that cannot speak English, cannot read the road signs, do not understand the American trucking culture, don't understand when to slow down. We are in a area where there's been a wreck or there's construction going on. They don't understand this. They are so, and I'm not trying to be, unkind. I'm not trying to be anything but truthful. They don't come from countries that have our culture, our interstates. They don't understand. And they don't speak and can't read English. And they're killing people. A whole family gone. This guy, I think, had been kicked out of the country multiple times. We'll get the details from Shannon. But when I talked about this today on my radio show, because I stumbled on a clip, my phone lines lit up from over-the-road American drivers saying it's worse than you're even portraying it. Let me tell you how bad it is, Brannon. This is so bad. We're going to continue this conversation tomorrow again on radio because I want to open up the phone lines tomorrow early to hear from more American truckers. We got a serious problem, and it's a major national security problem, and it's killing Americans on our interstates. We'll get to that. Let's also talk about this here. A woman, 84, is cured of terminal lung cancer. And doctors, they're shocked. They're shocked. They have a theory. It has something to do, folks, with her immune system. I wonder who's been talking about boosting your immune system to take out major health threats. Oh, that would be Dr. Lana. Let's find out what this woman did. They basically said, prepare to die. No, she's not dying. She used her own immune system to fight back cancer. Here's a headline. Police detective. 50% of sudden infant deaths happen within 48 hours of vaccination, but no one's allowed to say that. How about this one? Infection by injection. I'm going to show you an 1875 postcard that reveals that smallpox vaccines caused smallpox. Isn't that what Dr. Judy Mikovich was telling me back in 2020? Infection by injection. Have you heard about this guy? The IRGC's Quds Force commander. He's now reportedly safe in Israel. Apparently, he was helping the Israelis. That's how they were able to take out many of the top leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah. You see, Iran is filled with people that are sick of this regime. They want liberty and freedom. But we're also getting reports tonight that America and Israel are on the verge of striking Iran. Let's find out from our reporter on the ground in Israel, who's here in the U.S., Aaron, about all of the bombers that are being put into place and what Iran is doing, because there could be a strike on Iran very imminent. I don't know if that's a few days, a few weeks, a month. I have no idea. But you can see on both sides of this battle, the plans are being made for a strike. So we're going to talk about that. So we've got with us tonight a great lineup. Am I missing anybody, Logan? I don't think so. Great lineup tonight. You don't want to miss out. Oh, Tom Littleton, Logan. Tom Littleton. We're going to talk about undermining the theology and the doctrine of churches in America. Because you know what? Theology and morals are tied together. In other words, where you have theological failure, you also have moral failure. Do you want the churches in America to embrace the LGBTQ agenda, to embrace radical climate change, open borders? Want them to embrace that? First, tear down their foundation, the Bible, the authority of the Bible, the authority of biblical Christian doctrine. Tear that down. And once you do that, you'll be able to convince them of things you otherwise would never convince them of. Once you can really get them to say, well, did God really say? Did God really say? Did God really mean that in any given doctrinal area? Then pretty soon you can get them to not only water down Christian orthodoxy, but now you've gotten them to embrace cultural Marxism. We'll get to that tonight with Tom Littleton in a way I think will be very educational for many of you. How many of you know the word annihilationism? You know that word, annihilationism? It's the belief that when someone who doesn't believe in Jesus as their Lord and Savior dies, they'll go to hell, but they'll be destroyed, annihilated. So it's just for a period of time. It's called annihilationism. But there are those now who also are teaching what's called Christian universalism. It doesn't really matter if they believed in Jesus. God will reckon all things to himself, so everybody will get in. These ideas now, by some neo-Calvinist, neo-evangelicals, is now being considered orthodox. What? It's heresy. Would you be shocked the same people embracing this are now embracing the LGBTQ, transgender, radical climate change, global warming, open borders? Yeah. Because theological failure and moral failure are tied together. It's part of the religious Trojan horse, which is why I wrote that book in 2011 by that title, or the book in 2018, Marxianity. We'll get to that tonight with Tom Littleton. But before we do, we're going to go to a first-time guest on these illegal truckers. We're going to go to Shannon Everett, these illegal truckers that are here killing Americans on the road, and your government knows it and is allowing it. And I bet you President Trump doesn't know about this, but I pray that our interview tonight gets to him, President Trump finds out about it, and puts a fast stop to it. But folks, we first need your support. Worldview Tube. We're going to go to a long format interview. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Hey, don't you need an emergency medical kit? Some amoxicillin, ivermectin, supplements. Maybe you need a health plan where you can get free supplements, free prescriptions. Well, you can get that when you go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors and check out everything that's available through the wellness company, worldviewhealthcare.com. Our vault. Hey, if you join our vault, guess what? You're going to be able to live stream 2 weeks from tonight. 2 weeks from tonight, you're going to be able to live stream the conference at the Waukesha Expo Center 2 weeks from tonight. The only way you're going to be able to see it is if you're there in the building or you're a vault member. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Worldviewtube.com/vault. You also get access to over 35 years of my radio shows, TV shows, books, documentaries, and so much more. Okay? What else do we got here? Oh, Worldview Talk. You want to get a satellite phone, a cell phone that doesn't track you, doesn't store your data. You want to find out about solar generators. I have a satellite phone. I have a bivvy. I can text through the bivvy off my phone, goes to a satellite. I have one of their solar generators. Or you can use that number, 1-866-738-3224. You probably want to use the number if you're going to get a generator, because you're going to have a lot of questions. I want you to get the right one. I don't want you to get one that's too small and then be disappointed. So call, make sure you mention Brandon House Live, so we get credit, and ask your questions. 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224, okay? They have bulletproof backpacks. They have the blankets that knock down the electromagnetic force. So much is here on this website, worldviewtalk.com. This is just one of our many sponsors. Folks, this is how we keep the network going. Our sponsors like Worldview Talk, our foundation, Bella Grace, Numi, Gatatana, okay? Spread the word about these great companies. I use every one of their products. I use products from every one of these companies myself. You know that, okay? You'll find them all at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Let's get ready for another famous long format interview here on Worldview Tube and Brandon House Live. Joining me now is a first-time guest, Shannon Everett. He is with this organization right here, American Truckers United. My friends, 20 years ago, I started warning about things like NAFTA, the North American Highway, and my friend Phyllis Schlafly, who's now, of course, since passed away, was warning about it. We were warning on a radio show a good 12, 15 years ago about our concerns of illegal truckers coming into the U.S. or non-citizens coming to the U.S. Citizens that won't be able to speak the language, won't be able to read the road signs. You can go back in my vault at worldviewtube.com/vault and find my interview with Phyllis Schlafly on this. Well, in my research for radio today, I stumbled across, and I now follow American Truckers. I'm now following these guys. But I stumbled on testimony given by one of the co-founders. And I played it on radio today, my 74 Christian radio stations. And the phone lines lit up. Every one of them a trucker. We have a lot of over-the-road professional drivers that listen to my broadcast. And we pray for you and your safety. That's a tough job. And I've told this audience, I got a real respect for the over-the-road driver. When in June of 2003, we purchased a big motor coach. And you know, my family and I traveled in that motor coach from 2003 to 2018, holding conferences all over this country. And when I got behind the wheel of that thing, and particularly when it was loaded down with all of our books and DVDs and conference setup, platform stage setup, all the equipment, utilities we'd have to bring, that thing took a long time to stop. People would pull their little car in front of you and slam on the brakes thinking you could stop on a dime. And they think you could get that thing going, like they could with a push of the gas pedal. You can't. They're honking at you because you're not going fast enough. I'm telling you, folks, I had a new respect for the over-the-road driver, what they have to deal with. But now they have to worry about their safety and that of others on the road by people who cannot even read the language. Logan, we got a crash recently that happened, Austin, Texas? Killed, I think, a family of 4. A non-citizen that couldn't apparently speak the language, read the road signs. Joining me now is one of the founders of American Truckers United, Shannon Everett, out of Arkansas. Shannon, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Hey, good afternoon. Glad to be here.
Great to have you with us. What do you make of my opening monologue there?
Well, I think it's divine that y'all reached out to us. I think first and foremost, we're a Christian organization, and so our foundation's on Christian principles. And in fact, if you look at the logo of American Truckers United, you'll see the license plate on the front of the truck is actually Psalm 34.
Oh, you're kidding! Wow. Is it? Well, I didn't know that. I'm hearing this all for the first time. Well, I need to bring you I need to bring you on my 74 Christian stations tomorrow because I want to cover this again. Because, Shannon, our phone lines melted. Every one of them was an over-the-road trucker, a professional driver, calling in to say, you're 100% right. The last caller, he was from Minnesota, and we were pressed for time because the computer is going to take it away. And I didn't fully understand what he was saying, but Logan in the control room told me what he was trying to say. He was trying to say that the other truckers that were talking about all of the foreign drivers, that one talked about one from Somalia and all these different countries. The last caller, who I didn't fully understand because we were so pressed for time, his point was he goes to some truck stops, he doesn't see any Americans. He doesn't see any Americans. I'm like, what? What do you make of that report?
We're really in the 11th hour in this replacement cycle. And so what we're experiencing in the industry is we have two ecosystems now. We have the ecosystem, which includes the American truck driver and the legacy American carriers. And then you have this new ecosystem of foreign commercial driver's licenses, non-domicile commercial driver's licenses. And this ecosystem works for mostly a lot of smaller fleets, new fleets, but also you find these guys in some of the mega fleets throughout the industry. And this other ecosystem that's done our industry so well for all these years really includes your mom and pop operations, your 50 truck, 100 truck, 200 truck fleets. And they're being decimated right now because they can't compete with the slave wages of the new ecosystem.
Of course they can.
And so I have no doubt that your phones blew up. We just got back from the Louisville Truck Show, which is the Mid-America Truck Show. Usually has about 50,000 in attendance. We had the same kind of reaction. Guys were just lined up at our booth. We heard story after story of just of how these guys are really just being, their wages are being suppressed right now. Their living standards are being suppressed right now because they're having to compete with these guys. And there is no way to compete. We've got information that shows the wages of these countries that are coming over here are less than a third, in some cases a tenth of what an American truck driver makes.
Wow.
And so it's impossible for these guys to compete. And then these guys are coming from cultures that don't have the same driving culture that we have in the United States. A lot of the countries that these guys are coming from, some of these guys don't even regularly drive cars, much less 80,000-pound commercial vehicles. And so we have noticed a dramatic rise in the number of fatal truck crashes across the United States. And that's what really got us involved in this. My experience goes back 25 years. I used to have a fleet of 1,000 trucks. I ended up laying off over 450 truck drivers due to competition from foreign commercial driver's licenses. But it was really the thing that got us going on this American Truckers United last year was the crash of Scott Miller in Colorado. Scott was killed by a driver, a foreign commercial driver who had been deported 16 times. He was under deportation orders at the time that he killed Scott. And that's why, we say we're a Christian group and we move on Christian foundation and principles. And I really felt the Lord call me into this. I know my partner, Harvey, he's also a Christian. He felt also the Lord call him into this mission. And it's really, we're here. We feel like we're called here to love on our American truck drivers and to love on these crash victims who until this last 6 months or so have not had proper representation. They have not had a voice for the travesty that's taking place in the industry.
What was Scott's last name? I want to look that story up. What was his name?
Scott Miller. If you go to Twitter, ATU Truckers, it'll be at the top of our feed. The guy that killed him was just released Sunday from jail after serving for only a small amount of time for a misdemeanor, and ICE arrested him when he was released from the jail. We covered that on our Twitter feed. Did you?
I'm going to get to that. Yep. Look at this. Look at this. Oh, well, guys, watch this. Here we go.
Ignacio Cruz Mendoza served a sentence for a crash that killed 64-year-old Scott Miller in June of last year. Mendoza was driving a semi-truck that rolled, spilling steel pipes onto other vehicles, killing Miller and hurting one other person. Cruz Mendoza does not have a U.S. driver's license, and ICE says he is a citizen of Mexico who was previously returned to Mexico 16 times after coming to the U.S. in 2002. In a statement to CBS Colorado, they say he was arrested and taken to the ICE Denver Contract Detention Facility, quote, where he will remain pending removal from the United States.
And how long was he in there, Shannon?
The accident was in June of 24, and so just a little over 9 months.
So he gets 9 months for murdering a guy.
Yeah, and so that's part of the problem. So we've got a bill currently here filed in the state of Arkansas. It's HB 1569. It's called the Secure and Safe Roads Act. And in that bill, we address the criminal statute for people who have crashes and either injure or kill someone when they don't have a valid commercial driver's license. And so one of the loopholes that we have across the industry right now is there's no code that specifically addresses that violation.
Well, let me go. This is what I just stumbled on in my research for show prep today, and that's why I ended up carrying it on radio. And again, I'd like to have you go ahead and put down 1 p.m. Central for tomorrow. You'll be live on 74 Christian stations, because I think we need to hear from you now, not just me talking about it. But I did play this today of your co-founder on the air. Listen to this, folks. I want you guys to hear this too.
Thank you. If you'll identify yourself for the record.
Yes, sir. I'm Harvey Beach. I'm one of the co-founders of American Truckers United, and my family has been in the trucking business in Arkansas for 43 years. I'm going to really quickly try to give you guys some facts and then also speak to the enforcement language that was in 1745. Some facts. The American Trucking Association advised our federal government that it was okay to give non-citizens what's called a non-domiciled CDL. And it's important to note that a non-domiciled CDL cannot even be used to board an airplane in our country. The Biden administration, with their open borders policy and under the advisement of the American Trucking Association, created the Biden Trucking Action Plan in 2021. And the results of that plan flooded hundreds of thousands of unvetted non-citizens into the long-haul trucking segment. The majority of these folks cannot read, speak, or understand English. And again, I would like to point out a non-domiciled CDL cannot be used to board an airplane in our country. The American Trucking Association and the Arkansas Trucking Association endorsed the Biden Trucking Action Plan. Since that plan has been put in place, there has been an effort by the American Trucking Association to pass bills in as many states as possible that allow for non-domiciled CDLs and even non-domiciled learner's permits, which was in the original draft of House Bill 1745. I want to talk about the enforcement language.
All right, let me just stop right there. So he goes on to talk about all the crashes, which you've mentioned as well. Logan, do we have the screenshot of the one from San Antonio, was it San Antonio, Logan? Austin.
Texas.
Oh, you know about that one, Shannon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me about what you know on that one.
So we saw the crash when it happened, and we're following these commercial vehicle crashes pretty closely. So immediately we procured the video from the scene that showed the commercial truck driver unable to speak English when confronted by one of the witnesses. And so one of the first things that we did was put out a call across Twitter and I believe Facebook to say, hey, if y'all have anything on this driver, let us know. But there should be an immediate investigation into the background on the qualification, the training, the vetting, and the immigration status of this truck driver. And after we did that, there was a Twitter personality or a handle called Sarah is Censored, I believe it was, who answered that call and started digging in and doing research on this guy, and found out that he was on a work visa that he was here from Ethiopia, that he was unable to speak English, that his one of the problems that we've been finding with these guys is a lot of these are refugees and they're here on asylum request. And so his birth date was a made up birth date on the driver's license. It just shows 1/1 of some made up year. And we're seeing that as commonplace across the industry right now. We also tracked it back to the domicile address for the motor carrier. I think there was something like 10 different motor carriers all operating out of this same apartment building. And so she did such a good job on researching all of this that the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, did a response to her and just did it like a reply all on Twitter that said, hey, this is now under investigation by the Department of Transportation.
I think we have some footage of this. This was a trucker who was driving intoxicated too fast in Austin, Texas. 17 vehicles were involved. 5 dead. That's it? 5 dead, including an infant and a child. I don't know what the language is going to be like, hopefully, but here we go.
It's you, bro?
Okay, that's got language.
What? What happened?
When I'm coming and somebody is left you and I put here. So.
But the traffic was there, bro. Like, there's no way you should have been. I'm a trucker myself, bro. Yeah. You're not putting that. You were going too fast. You know, there's 2 people dead over there, and possibly 2 more, possibly 4. They're dead.
Dead?
They're dead.
Dead?
Yes, dead.
Oh my goodness.
They're f***ing dead, bro. Because of your stupid.
All right. This is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Our government regulates you and I as American citizens to death. They're not regulating these guys.
Yeah, so we believe there's 2 different standards for these 2 separate ecosystems. We know, having all the experience in the trucking industry, we're all aware that the trucking industry is probably one of the most regulated industries in the United States. But there seems to be a politically based lack of enforcement on this separate ecosystem of drivers, and we really don't understand that. If you go on our page, you'll see that we were challenging the FMCSA recently at a meeting and asking questions about that. And we've been asking some pretty hard questions, and those so far have continued to go unanswered. But we're going to keep shouting about this, because not only are people being killed, but jobs are being lost, and an entire industry is being turned over and replaced.
Yeah, and the safety issue when you get out on a street. Let's go to this. Let's show this right here. This is from their website. If you want to follow them, or Twitter feed. Here's their Twitter feed if you guys want to follow them. At ATU Truckers. At ATU Truckers, if you want to follow them on social, on X. Shocking revelation from Highway Police. States are now issuing commercial driver's licenses to non-citizens with no names required. We heard this directly from 2 separate officers at the Mid-America Trucking Show this week. Not only are non-domicile CDLs being handed out to non-citizens, but we can now confirm there is 0 vetting. They don't even need a full name. Check out this insane example from the sanctuary state of California below. What's happening to our road safety?
Yeah, so we had 2 highway police officers come up to us when we were at the Mid-America Trucking Show, and you look, these officers are just as outraged as these truck drivers are. Unfortunately, they're scared to lose their jobs, and so they're not speaking out. They're not sharing what they're seeing in the industry. And so we just had one, I guess, that was courageous enough, brave enough to step forward and start telling us. And he said, "Have you seen the no name given CDLs?" And I'm like, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." And so he was able to give us an example and show it to us. And we went and asked another officer, and that an officer that overheard that conversation was like, "Yeah, I've got a picture of one," and then he showed us one. And so we put out a post on Twitter saying, "Man, we just recently heard that they're now even issuing CDLs without full names, without proper names on them. How can that be?" And then immediately, we've got a good following now of people in the industry with strong, deep backgrounds. And immediately we had a copy of these two.
Well, we're going to direct people to your website because we have a lot of over-the-road professional drivers. Can they join your organization? I'm assuming they can.
Yeah, so if you just go to that sign up now button, registration is completely free. So if you click there, that takes you, it defaults to the driver page. So you can see just 5 or 6 fields there. Hey, you know, where are you from? What's your name? Are you a U.S. citizen? And do you have a CDL? And then just agree to the terms. And all you're agreeing to is that we can advocate on your behalf. We're trying to pass legislation. And so, you know, we need to sign up about 50,000 drivers and take a large voice to Washington, D.C. and demand that they take action on this issue.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Shannon, in closing. You maybe heard me in my opening monologue that I interviewed many times my friend Phyllis Schlafly for so many years. She's passed away now. But we were talking 15 years ago or so about NAFTA, North American Highway, the superhighway. And she was warning about Mexican trucks coming right over our border. And she was saying then, do you think their safety standards are equal to ours? They're going to be bringing their junk trucks onto our interstates. I don't know if that's going on. I'll let you answer that. But whether they're bringing their trucks over, many of the drivers from these countries, Mexico, Somalia, other places, where they can't read the language, they can't speak the language, they're here. And I don't know if this has anything to do with NAFTA, North American Union, the idea of merging America, Canada, and Mexico that I've been warning about for so many years with people like Phyllis Schlafly and Tom DeWeese and others. But my friend Phyllis and I were talking about this on the radio probably 15 years ago. Is this what this is all about? Is this involved?
Absolutely. She was as right as Ross Perot.
Do you know who I'm talking about when I say Phyllis Schlafly?
No, I do not.
Well, but, yeah. Well, I'll email you. I'll text you some of her stuff. You won't believe what she was warning about so many years ago that has now come to pass.
I was a big Ross Perot fan, and so I've been hearing a sucking sound for a long time, and I can tell you that they absolutely do not have the same safety standards. We actually have a problem in the country with fraudulent CDLs out of Mexico. We actually have testimony that you'll find on our Twitter page from a safety expert who has reviewed thousands of driver qualification files for Mexican conductor licensed drivers and has never seen an MVR violation. And so they keep no background history of DUIs and DWIs and speeding tickets and traffic accidents. And so these guys are all being qualified. They're all being put on our roads here in the United States. And we don't even know what kind of driving record or history that they have. We have no way of checking whether the license that they present is actually suspended or active. There's so many problems with that. And there's loopholes that are allowing that. You know, we never did really complete the whole pilot program that we had with Mexico and the United States. In 2009, we had a Mexican carrier pilot program that didn't go very well. And you don't hear anything about that anymore. And so why is that? Well, that's because you now have U.S. domiciled companies who are subcontracting out foreign labor and hiring these Mexican conductor driver's licenses to actually work for the U.S. companies.
So are they bringing their trucks over here or just their drivers?
Just their drivers.
Okay. So she was concerned about them bringing their trucks at one time, but I guess the way to get around that is just bring their drivers.
That's right. And that's what they're doing. That's what they're really focused on.
How can, I mean, you've already answered it. There's no way to make a living. What does the average American trucker make? And what are these non-citizens making an hour?
Yeah. So we've done some research on that. The experts show that the average wage for a commercial truck driver, including all modes, I think that's including local and over the road. And so it gets a little fuzzy, but it says 56,000. I would argue that most of your over the road truck drivers who are staying out and they're gone for 7-10 days at a time, those guys are targeting $75,000 to $80,000 a year, but they're not getting there today. And that's because they're having to compete with this other wage. And so, they need to be, they should be making $100,000 because they're sacrificing more than all of our tradesmen who are making somewhere close to that and who aren't having to sacrifice being away from their families and being gone 10 days at a time. But because of this labor dumping that's taking place, because all these people have been pumped in on top of them or dumped in on top of them, their wages right now are actually declining. At the same time, inflation is going up. Our drivers are in the middle of critical emergency right now.
I bet they are.
They are destitute.
Yeah. I want to show a quick video here to the audience because I think this is a gorgeous cab here. Look at this. Look at this Kenworth. I mean, this is a gorgeous vehicle here. Now, as we get here in this video footage, you'll notice that extended cab there. And I think that's a great idea. I've been following these for a few years thinking, if I ever wanted to retire from what I'm doing and go see the country and get paid to do it, well, now I guess apparently there's not any money in it, but this would be the way to do it because that's going to be your kitchen and your bathroom and your where you sleep. Other than stopping for diesel, you won't have to stop to use a bathroom or a shower at a truck stop because you guys are about to see when you get on board, these things are gorgeous. But I'm thinking, how can a trucking company afford this anymore? Who can afford that now that they're apparently destroying trucking? And the idea of attracting, retired folks to go get their CDL license, and maybe I've heard of married couples retiring and getting CDL license and traveling and doing it with something like this. But I don't know, who are they catering to anymore? I don't see middle-class families or middle-class guys. A lot of them going to be running to this. And how does a trucking company afford that? That's a beautiful rig. And that door right there, you're about to see him open it. That's the bathroom and the shower. And I keep seeing them using these to try to attract couples to over-the-road careers. How could they afford to attract a middle-class family or couple or even pay for that truck? Shannon?
Yeah, that truck fits a very small niche in the industry of people who are able to haul, whether it's high value, low weight items. But most of your truckers out here, I would say probably 98% of your truckers are not going to be able to utilize something like that because almost all of our traffic is really cubed out and it's weighed out. It's an efficient form of transportation. And so, that truck's going to weigh at least 25,000 pounds and your typical truck's going to weigh 18,000 pounds. And so that truck's going to be hauling at least 5,000 pounds less than a typical shipment. And that kind of throws it out of the competition for most of your freight activity. And so there's a small niche of people that can do that. Hey, everybody would love to have that truck, but if you go buy that truck, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunity, a lot of freight out here.
Isn't that terrible that we can't set the system up where you could have a couple or even a couple guys that just say, I want to do the efficiency of driving and getting diesel, but we got our own kitchen or bathroom, but that we can't make trucking more affordable. That's what I'm saying. I guess here's my slogan. Can we make American trucking great again? Can we not?
That is a great point. As an industry, we need to be focused on increasing the standards for our American truck drivers. I love that idea. Just the fact that we could, have better accommodations for these guys who are sacrificing all this time away. I mean, just the example that you're giving there is, this weight classification and trying to utilize the maximize the utilization of the truck has made it so these guys are cramped down into smaller and smaller quarters. Is there a way to make that better? And look, we need to attract, if we're going to crack down on all this illegal immigration and trucking, we're going to have to focus on incentivizing people to come back into the industry.
Exactly.
There is not a shortage of people that can drive a truck. There's a shortage of people that want to drive trucks for slave wages.
That's right. And then so I think if you add in some perks with good pay, and then, hey, you retired from some other line of work and you want to go into doing this, bring your spouse with you. I'm telling you, it's not the same, but when my motor coach and I drove all over the country, my wife would hop up and she'd pop stuff in the oven or the microwave or whatever, and I'd pull over and I'd have dinner and we'd rest, and then I'd get back on the road, and it was a great way to travel. If someone can do that with their spouse, and maybe it's a young couple and they both have their CDL. This is now encouraging great Americans to get into a line of work that would have a more wholesome and appealing lifestyle. Why can we not do that? I'm going to go back. We need a hats, make American trucking great again. And I want to know, are we getting the President Trump administration on board? I bet you President Trump doesn't know what we're talking about right now. Does he know about all the illegals that are killing people because they're non-citizens driving these trucks?
Our president does not know. And the reason that we've been screaming from the mountaintops is because we know that we have a president, we have an administration that won't stand for this. And so we've just been trying our best to get the message to him. And look, he's got more important issues like world peace, and I understand all of that. But our American truckers, I believe, should be somewhere high on that list. And hopefully he will receive this message and get to them as soon as possible, because we have some truck drivers out here, and we have some victims out here that are really in a bad spot, and they need some help.
Well, you know what? We're going to put this online tomorrow morning after tonight, and we're going to ask our audience to tweet this at our president, because I agree 100% with you. When he hears this, he's going to go, "What? Are you kidding me? We got non-citizens who can't speak the language, who are driving these massive trucks, and they're killing Americans." I mean, this one guy, he killed how many? 5 people?
He killed 5 and injured 11. Actually, there was an entire family of 4 that was wiped out in the accident,
including an infant. And a small child. So I know President Trump will take this under his wing when he hears about it. And our audience, we're going to ask them to grab this tomorrow at worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com. Please tweet it to our president. Say, "Mr. President, help make American trucking great again. Please invite the AmericanTruckers.com guys. Invite Shannon and invite his co-founder, whose name is
Harvey.
There he is. Harvey, who testified before the Arkansas. We played his audio on 74 Christian Station. Ask President Trump to bring Shannon and Harvey to the Oval Office to hear what has been said tonight, or just watch the whole interview. I bet you we'll start seeing some action. So tweet it to the president, folks. This whole interview that you'll find at worldviewtube.com and on our X page, WorldviewTube, as well. Harvey, Shannon, thank you so much. And I'd love to have you on my 74 Christian stations tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central if one or both are available.
Okay, we'll make sure one of us is there.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Check out their website, AmericanTruckers.com. We have a lot of over-the-road drivers. You might want to check into this organization, because when we opened the phone lines up today at 1 o'clock Central, every caller, and they were stacked up, every caller was a professional over-the-road driver. And you know what? Not a one of them said, "Oh, Brandon, you're telling lies. This is not true." They were all like, "Let me tell you my horror story. Let me tell you what I'm running into. Let me tell you what I see every day." They called to say everything that Harvey was saying before the legislature there in Arkansas was true. And, well, it's even worse than that. If they'd given him more time to speak, I'm sure he would have told more. So point people to this website, AmericanTruckers.com, and please tweet this at President Trump, and let's see if we can make American trucking great again. All right, there was another long format interview. How many commercial breaks do you think all the other networks would have taken? Not us. Is that because we don't have any expenses? No. About $40,000+ a month to keep the network going. Is it because we don't want to bring in revenue? No, but we don't want to sacrifice content. So we love doing the long format interviews, and we're going to do them as long as we can. And if we don't get the support we need, then we'll start taking breaks and working in ads. But for right now, this is the model. So please go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Check out all our sponsors right now. You guys know I take Bella Grace every day. This is one of our biggest sponsors. This is a powerful elixir with 3 powerful ingredients, 80 clinical trials behind this. Collagen, cat's claw, that's an anti-inflammatory. Astaxanthin, takes on free radicals. That crosses the brain-blood barrier. You know what else they have there? They have, and these banners move around, there it is. They have also a skincare. Melissa loves the skincare. There's your 80 clinical trials. Melissa loves, there's the skincare. She loves the skincare. There's her endorsement. She uses it. I see her using it when I get ready in the morning. She's doing her thing over her sink and mirror. Logan and Melissa are both on the Bella Trim, all natural weight loss. Also great for your cardiac health and more. The sleep, that's the sleep gummies. She uses those to help her stay asleep. She loves these products. MelissaHouseBG.com, MelissaHouseBG.com. Drink good water. I mean, unless you like drinking fluoride and bacteria and pesticides. Oh, sure, let's have a dose of pesticides, hon. Unless you like all that, I would suggest you go to worldviewwater.net and get one of these filters. We have a lower third for that. Worldviewwater.net. There it is. It's amazing how when I say that, all of a sudden it appears. I don't know. It's almost like there's somebody in the control room listening. You can also go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Get your, look at that. It's almost like there's someone in there listening. You don't want to waste any of that. There you go. I don't want to get on my suit either. There you go. Worldviewwater.net. That was my Bella Grace. I finished this. I'm sure everybody knows what I was doing there. Get the water purifiers. You can get one for under the sink and get one for your shower. I have one for under the sink, and I have the shower one as well. So check those out as well. All of these sponsors are there at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Gold keeps setting a record high. Gold keeps setting record highs. Silver is rising too. You guys can find out about precious metals, gold, silver, putting gold in your IRA, the difference between bullion and numismatic. Just click the more info button at the top. Fill out the form. No obligation, no risk, no obligation. Free. What do you got to lose? Just get the information. Just get the information. Worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com, or you'll find the link there at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. The Numi, I swish with this. This has glutathione to detox your cells. And core studies show that glutathione may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. So a lot of great things there. Check it all out. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Joining me now is our reporter, our Israeli reporter, who happens to be in Arizona tonight. But we have breaking news. We have more news than we can keep up with related to Israel. He joins us now because it looks as though, according to some reports, the idea of striking Iran by Israel and America is getting closer and closer. Aaron, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
With you, Brandon.
Hey, can you confirm this? I trust this guy, Eli David. I trust his reporting. He never steers me wrong. What do you know about this? IRGC Quds Force commander is confirmed safe in Israel. He was an Israeli asset. This is how they were able to eliminate the Hamas leader, Haniyeh, and Hezbollah leaders, Nasrallah and others. What do you know about this?
Yeah, well, we have our intelligence. We have our friends here and there. And obviously, he was a friend and he was working from within. We all know about the Mossad and the CIA and
right.
co-op things that they do. So we go back to the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Brannon. The son-in-law of President Nasser, he also turned to Israel and gave us information that helped prepare us a little bit for the so-called surprise attack on Yom Kippur. So, yeah, I just hope he's safe. I just hope his family is safe. And God blesses him for helping us.
Well, here's an article from back in October. He's alive and is currently being interrogated in Iran, sources claim.
Yeah. Well,
so apparently he's now made it to Israel.
I mean, if they have the proof, yeah. Well, I'm going to wait and see until it's fully verified.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are a lot of Iranian Jews living in Israel that speak Parsi. Many Iranian Jews, because they all fled. They all had to flee. I used to have a landlord who was an Iranian Jew. So lots of Iranian Jews. So they speak Parsi. And I hope he's woke. If he's in Israel, I hope he's being looked after. They just had the Iranian New Year a few days ago, a couple of days ago. So I hope he's celebrating in a peaceful place with a democracy, with freedom. And I hope, as I say, his family are safe as well.
All right. What are you hearing about the you said the other day, you would not be shocked if America and Israel strike Iran in the next week, certainly the next month, but you said I wouldn't be shocked if it has happened in a week. What are you hearing tonight?
I know. Well,
I think he just froze.
I haven't heard a lot of change except you know, I said yesterday that America are upping the ante as far as getting ships, aircraft, supplies. The report I heard today that a mass amount of American cargo planes and B-2 bombers are just non-stop making their way into the Middle East. Remember what Netanyahu said on October the 7th and October the 8th, Brandon?
Yep.
He said the Middle East will not be the same. And he obviously knew things that we didn't, and we are seeing what he predicted. It's insane. You know what the latest I heard, Brandon, today? That Trump, who's been talking with the Egyptian president, he just finished a long talk with the Morsi, the president, and but I've heard that under the scenes, behind the scenes, the new Syrian leader, Jolani, he and Israel are working towards some kind of peace.
How do you have an ISIS dude work peace with Israel?
I don't know. This is fresh off the press. Now, here's the other big news. To me, this is big news. The Turkey, they are seriously getting involved here. We know that the northern border of Syria is the southern border of Turkey. Turkey have moved into Syria. They are moving their air force and soldiers and heavy-duty surface-to-air missiles. Now, here's why it's big news. Israel are against, or rather, at the moment, there is bad blood between Israel and Turkey. In fact, just yesterday, Erdogan prayed that Allah would destroy Israel. This is the neighborhood that we live in, Brandon. Well, here's why it's big news. We all know, and let me remind the viewers, that Turkey are a member of NATO. And I quote, and I listen to this, Brandon, according to Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which states that an attack on any member is considered an attack on all members. So if Turkey, who are moving into Syria, decide that they want to start firing missiles at Israel, and Israel retaliates, which we will, Article 5 of the NATO Charter says any attack on one member of NATO is an attack on all members. I'm telling you, it's heating up, and this is a strategic move of Erdogan. I think he's trying to bring division. He's trying to put a wedge, maybe even push America out of NATO. Maybe America will leave NATO.
Well,
I don't know.
Listen to what Channel 14 in Israel is reporting tonight. Here we go.
איומיו של דונלד טראמפ לא מותירים מקום.
We're going to have, you can understand that, right, Aaron?
I can.
All right, so Aaron's going to translate, folks. Stand by.
לספק, אנחנו גם רואים את אימוני חיל האוויר, ובסופו של דבר, מערכת הביטחון של ישראל, שרק מחכה לפקודה, צאו להתקפה על איראן. אם לא יקרה דבר דרמטי, תקיפה רחבת היקף של ארצות...
Okay, what's he saying?
So he's saying that, yeah, we're in the waiting zone, waiting to hit Iran. America are waiting, Israel are waiting, carry on.
Okay.
הברית לבדה באיראן תצא אל הפועל. אולי ישראל גם יכולה לתקוף לבדה, ואולי אפילו יש את המתווה המשולב, שהוא המועדף ביותר על ישראל. בכל תרחיש...
And that the Iranians, and I'm paraphrasing, basically their triggers are loaded. They're waiting for the attack. They're waiting to be attacked, I'm sorry. And they're planning some kind of attack themselves.
תספוג מהלומה קשה, ואולי אפילו אנושה שתזעזע את המשטר, האיראנים כמובן יגיבו, וישראל תהיה היעד העיקרי.
So that the Iranians will try to weather the storm, weather the attack, and retaliate back. I mean, my understanding is when Israel attacked Iran some months ago, we took out all their defense systems. But he was saying that the Iranians are saying, we will weather the attack and we will retaliate. Carry on.
שאליה תופנה מרבית האש. לאחר שבשנה וחצי האחרונות פרקה ישראל בעבודה קשה כמעט את כלל כוחו של חיזבאללה והחמאס כמובן ברצועה.
So he's saying for the last year and a half, Iran have been weakened, been attacked, as well as Hamas, one of their proxies. So I think the report is, I mean, obviously I didn't hear the whole report, but it's almost like he's questioning the sanity of the Khomeini. What's he talking about? Where's his air defense systems? You know, and is this a bluff?
All right, let's keep going.
איראן די תלויה בעצמה, ואולי יש לה את החות'ים שגם נמצאים במצב בעייתי, אחרי התקיפות של האמריקנים בשבועיים האחרונים. בהתאם לזאת...
Maybe the Houthis will get involved as well.
You say the Houthis are going to get involved as well? Mm-hmm. That's what he's saying? The Houthis will get involved?
Yeah, he's saying maybe the Houthis might get involved, yeah.
Okay.
איראן, שחרב מונחת על צווארה, צפויה לשגר את מלוא ארסנל הטילים והכטב"מים שלה, חלק מהם מתקדמים בעלי יכולות משמעותיות. ברשות משמרות...
Yeah, he started to talk about the drones, the very advanced drone systems that the Iranians have manufactured themselves, very advanced. And maybe the threats, and he's not saying this, Brennan, but I'm saying it, and because we keep hearing these threats of Iran that don't make sense, because like I said, their air defense systems pretty much and radars have been taken out. And when they keep saying we've got some surprises, maybe they've got surprises in the area of drones, Brennan, and maybe they have special, I don't know, chemicals, I don't know, but the drones are definitely a game changer in this war.
מהפכה, על פי הערכות, אלפי טילי קרקע וגם טילי שיוט, בעלי יכולת נשיאה של מאות קילוגרמים של חומרי נפץ, גם סדרת טילי השיהאב, סדרת טילי החייבר וכטב"מים מסוג שייט, שכל אחד מהם יכול להסב נזק רב לתשתיות צבאיות ואסטרטגיות ישראל.
Yeah, he's basically talking about the quality, the quantity under the ground of these missiles and
in Iran,
especially under the ground and especially the drones, the quantity and the quality.
Has he said anything about what you guys are going to do?
Not yet, no.
All right, let's see if he does. Here we go.
וכמובן, גם לעורף הישראלי. במתקפות שראינו בשנה שחלפה, קיבלנו טעימה קטנה מיכולותיה של איראן, ייתכן שבמלחמה גדולה מולם, מערכות ההגנה האוויריות הישראליות יתקשו יותר לעמוד מול מתקפה רחבה.
So he's basically talking about the last year or so, and the attacks that Israel has received at the hands of the Iranians, which seems to be a mild dose. But he's now getting on to that red word on the screen there. That means the challenge of the amount of missiles and what kind of defense that we are going to need for a potential onslaught of missiles that maybe Iran may fire upon us.
היקף של אלפי טילים במשך ימים, ועל כן
Thousands
העורף
in a
יידרש.
matter of days. He's saying potentially it could be thousands in a matter of days. Remember, before the war started, Brandon, we were talking at least 100 to 150,000 missiles from Hezbollah, let alone Iran and the Houthis. So I don't think we've seen them all fired yet. Carry on.
יש לאיתנות. במקרה זה, צפוי שתהיה קואליציה בינלאומית שתתייצב לצד ישראל, לסכל את השיגורים. בפעמים הקודמות זה די הצליח.
Yeah. Who is going to be on Israel's side? That's the question. Who will support Israel? We've already talked about America and Israel going against Iran. Yesterday, I talked about possibly Britain, Germany, France. Let's see. See, the thing is...
By the way, did he say anything like an attack on Israel's coming that's unprecedented since World War II?
No, but the kind of talk that he didn't use those terms at all. But the way he was talking, he was saying it looks like it could be a big, big challenge for us. Big challenge.
I know you're here in the States. What are you hearing, personally on the ground from family members and friends?
Yeah, I mean, this happened before I came to the States, Brandon. There was a new heating up of the war. Definitely, Hezbollah have started firing on us again from the north. And of course, with the Americans brutally hitting on the Houthis, this could be a way by Hezbollah opening up again. And don't forget, during the ceasefire, they've been rearming. But it just seems, from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, we're handling the north. We're handling the north. And maybe this is the reason why the Americans are saying to Israel regarding the south, don't retaliate against the Houthis. We will deal with it. Maybe the Americans are saying, you deal with the north, we'll deal with the south. So, I'm not going to say you guys have got our back, but you guys have got our back. You guys are standing with us. I mean, I don't want to say I don't think this has really started yet, but maybe this hasn't really started yet. I don't know.
Well, isn't it ironic? 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be in Milwaukee, Waukesha, you and I, and Dr. Andy Woods, for our Understanding the Times Worldview Radio Rally. 2 weeks from tonight. A lot can happen in 2 weeks, so I don't know what's coming.
I know. Look what's happened in 2 days. I've got a whole list of updates, Brennan. It's just nonstop what's going on. Israelis abroad living outside of Israel have been warned in the synagogues around the world. They've been warned. But I am very concerned about Turkey getting involved here. This is a new front. They are, I wouldn't say they're the best friends of the Iranians, but if it comes to being an enemy of Israel, they wouldn't hesitate to join forces with the Iranians.
Well, let's talk about Russia, because Russia is warning about us attacking or striking Iran.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Here it is, right here. U.S. warns against U.S. strike on Iran sites, calls it catastrophic.
Yeah. Well, something that we haven't even talked about is, and this is where Trump comes in. It's the economic ramifications of what is about to happen. And when I say the economic ramifications, people taking over land means taking over natural resources.
Oil?
Whether it be oil, whether it be gas, whether it be gold, silver, whatever it is. This is a big factor. And of course, the trade routes. And this is a big part of Donald Trump's strategy. If he wants to, make America great again, it's going to have to be also economically. And we know, I've talked about one of his goals in taking over the Gaza Strip is to open up this what's called the peace corridor and make alliances with India, connecting the Europe, the West, with Asia, India, and bypassing China. It's a huge plan, Brennan, but they need that port in the Gaza area. But what is interesting is,
when you say they need that port, you're talking about the port, the Ben Gurion port we've been talking about?
Yes.
Which a lot of Americans don't know what we're talking about. We might have to remind them. There is the talk of, well, let me just put in, you keep talking, I'll bring up a map of it. Map will be much easier.
Yeah, this is being called the peace corridor, where, one of Trump's visions is not just to get rid of Hamas from the Gaza Strip, but to use that land and to use the port there, which is on the Mediterranean coast, somehow connecting Asia with Europe.
Yeah.
And it will go through a string of nations, including Saudi Arabia, including the United Arab Emirates.
Let me see if this report here, let's see what this is real quick. Let's see how well they do for us here. Hang on. Back that up if I can. All right. Well, let me refresh it. No, just back it up. All right, here we go.
Sea waterway, the Ben Gurion Canal, as a rival to the Suez Canal. As per the Israelis, the distance between Eilat, a southern Israeli port and resort town on the Red Sea near Jordan, and the Mediterranean is not long and is in fact similar to the distance of the Suez connection between the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. Although it poses a direct threat to the Egypt-Suez Canal, but Suez Canal is shorter than the Israeli route and the Suez Canal rarely reaches 100 meters in height, making it a better option. At the same time, Israel says this route is good for the ships which are unable to transit Suez Canal due to restrictions on the size of the ship. In the mid-1800s...
Oh, there we go.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Maybe this is one of the main motivators why Trump is going after the Houthis, because the Houthis are stopping trade go through the Suez Canal. There billions, I'm talking hundreds of billions of dollars have been lost in trade, or prices have gone sky high because some ships have had to take the long route to get their supplies to different nations. And on top of that, just yesterday, the Iranians reminded the world that they control the Hormuz Strait. I think that was them flexing a little bit of muscle and trying to show their local people that we still have a sense of power. Yeah,
and that Ben Gurion Canal would go right through the Gaza.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It seems that Trump has been educated on that dream, that vision of Ben Gurion, and he's on board.
All right, let me go to another article real quick, Aaron, and that is, let's see here, Trump's threat to Iran that there will be bombing comes amid new B-2 stealth bomber moves. I think they've moved a bunch of them into the Diego area.
Yeah, that's what I was reading. That's what I was saying before. Absolutely. They're the
Diego Garcia, I guess a little British island, right?
Correct. Yeah, they're maneuvering. It's the game of chess. They're setting up. They're ready to attack. They're ready to attack, and Israel are on board as well. In Indiana the other night, Brandon, there was a big storm, and I'll never forget. It's the first time in my life I've been in a storm. You
don't get those in Israel?
Sorry?
You don't get those in Israel?
Not this kind of storm. No, not at all.
This would have been on Sunday night because I was watching the map.
Yeah. Tornado Alley, they told me. They didn't tell me, my host didn't tell me that I'd be there before I came, just after. But I'll never forget the calm before that storm hit. It was an eerie kind of a calm. we're feeling that. People back home are feeling that. They're preparing. They're while we've got the initiative, we've got the wind in our sails. We know that until the Iranians come to their knees, we're still in danger. And let's not forget, the nuclear issue has not been solved yet. And until it has, we are under an existential threat. We cannot let them, and we've talked about this before, for all we know, maybe they already have. And maybe that's what Putin is referring to by saying that if we attack the Iranians, the results will be catastrophic. Maybe
of course, a lot of us over here are worried that when we go after with Israel, Iran, that's when China will go after Taiwan. In fact, listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to this latest report from RT. Here we go. That is, I guess, projecting audio, but apparently there is, moving into the region, more and more, I guess the reports the last, 20 hours is that Taiwan scrambles jets as Chinese vessels seen on exercise close to the island's coastline. And that's exactly what I was just showing you. So we're getting more and more reports of that. So isn't it interesting that as things are heating up, it looks like with Israel and America on Iran, China seems to be heating up on Taiwan.
And you've said this before, Brandon. I've heard you say it at least a few times. This could be a tactic.
Yep.
Getting the American ships and everything out of the way.
Yep.
Creating a vacuum. And China may be ready to go into that vacuum. But what is interesting, I heard Khomeini say, in his language, and it was translated, that America are very weak from the sea. And I don't get that, because I would say the extreme opposite. With all the aircraft carriers, in fact, just today, the USS, Carl Vinson? Aircraft carrier, another aircraft carrier turned up. So I don't know what kind of statement he meant when he said America are very weak from the sea. I don't see it that way myself.
Yeah, me neither. All right, well, things are going to be very fluid. We're looking forward to having you with us in Milwaukee 2 weeks from tonight. We have over 1,000 people registered by phone and online already. We're at the Waukesha Expo Center. It's free. You can register at worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. We'll take an offering to offset our expenses. So renting the building is going to be a good $4,000. And then we're going to give speakers cover their hotel and their lodging and their flights. So we got to take an offering. But other than that, it's free. But you must register, folks, so we can be sure to have enough seats for everybody. worldviewtube.com/events. Closing comment?
Well, I'm looking forward to it, Brandon. And I'm so blessed to be part of this team and those people that support this ministry and who are going to be there. And I hope to meet them. We're all an army here, and we're fighting against darkness. We're standing up for the truth, but it's a battle. So we need prayer and resilience.
Be safe. Aaron, lighttothenationsministry.com, lighttothenationsministry.com, brought to you by our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you, Aaron. worldviewfoundation.com. Folks, again, I cannot stress enough the foundation. I know you may get tired of hearing me talk about it, but this is one of our, next to Bella Grace, this is our biggest sponsor. So please go there, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You also find our mailing address there. If you prefer to support us through the mail or by phone, you can set up an automatic credit card or PayPal automatic contribution, or just make a one-time. We are looking for more regular monthly contributors. Do please consider setting up an automatic monthly contribution. That takes a lot of stress off of us, so we can see what's coming in each and every month. So thank you for that. All right, look at this headline right here. Woman, 84, is cured of terminal lung cancer, and shocked doctors have fascinating theory. Okay, talk about that. How about this one right here? Police detective 50% of sudden infant deaths happen within 48 hours of vaccination, but no one's allowed to say it. And infection by injection. 1875 postcard reveals smallpox vaccines caused smallpox. This is the actual postcard with some writing on the backside. So I guess this is from, like you said, 1800s. We're going to talk about that and more with Dr. Lana. We do our Tuesday health segment with Dr. Lana. She joins us. Dr. Lana, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hello. It is always a pleasure, Brandon.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right. I sent this one to you because this one was fascinating. Woman, 84, is, quote, cured, end quote, of terminal lung cancer. And shocked doctors have fascinating theory. A Utah grandmother has just 6 months to live. She's been given 6 months to live. She was diagnosed with an aggressive lung cancer and has confounded doctors by seemingly beating the disease. 84 years old, diagnosed with small cell lung cancer in 2019. Medics told her the rare case had spread to her brain, and her family braced themselves to say their goodbyes. However, last week she defied all expectations to receive her 100th immunotherapy dose. Now that, Dr. Lana, is where I got interested. Immunotherapy. I was waiting for them to say, you know, chemotherapy or radiation or something, and I saw immunotherapy. Wait a minute, she was doing something to boost her immune system. Sounds like what we talk about with Dr. Lana all the time. I asked you to read over it, give us your thoughts. Will you do that, please?
Absolutely. And, you know, I studied this in school. I was blessed to study with a couple of cancer specialists, and one of them traveled all over the world for 35 years to allopathic medical hospitals as well as natural alternative care centers. And it always came back to supporting the immune system. And Brandon, immunotherapy coupled with a few other protocols has been used for years. And when you boost your own immune system and you go to doctors that do immunotherapy, and years ago there were vaccines around that helped, that those were coupled with immunotherapy. There's some other treatments that are coupled with immunotherapy, that in a very specific dietary protocol, the right water, and of course, prayer, spiritual, getting out in the sun. You hit that disease with many different things, but immunotherapy is absolutely, it's been used for many, many years. It's suppressed, if you will, no pun intended, in the United States. We don't talk about it.
So did she try chemo or radiation or not? Did she do any of that?
She went to, she had her 100th treatment, and there is no more. She has small lung cell cancer, which is really frankly, as you can see in the article, a death sentence. And they gave her, and I do not like, no one's God. I don't like when someone says you have X number of weeks or months to live. Nobody knows that but God. So they did tell this woman 6 months to live, and that was in 2018, 2019. She's still alive. They did find some small cancer tumor cells in her brain, but she is out and about and living a normal life in her mid-80s, enjoying her grandchildren and her life. And she just kept to it. She was very adamant about these immunotherapy treatments are helping me, and every few weeks, and she just continued to get them. And I teach my patients this all the time. I do crucial care consultations, and I'm like, look, I'm the doctor, you're the boss. They're the doctors, you're the boss. And if your doctors don't feel that way, go find new doctors, because you are the boss of your body and your health. And this beautiful Korean lady sounded like she was the boss. And she said, I'm going to continue these immunotherapy treatments. I can tell they're helping me. And look at her now. So she's doing quite well.
Do you think she had, do we know from the article if she ever even tried chemo or radiation?
I didn't see it in there.
I didn't see it here either.
I did not see any of that. She was set on those immunotherapy treatments. And, you know, they'll take your blood, they'll take your cells, and it's really giving your own body a boost. And it's really what God does. Like, God builds our body to regroup, to heal itself, to go back into homeostasis. The body's always fighting to go back into balance. And that immunotherapy helps the body do that. So she was a fighter and sounds like very adamant, that she had those treatments.
Let's go to the next article. Police detective. 50% of sudden infant deaths happen within 48 hours of vaccination, but no one's allowed to say it. That's what he said in an interview with Steve Kirsch, a former police detective, claimed that about half of the sudden infant deaths cases she investigated, this is an interview with Steve Kirsch. Steve is someone I interview all the time, and he interviewed a former police detective. She investigated, showed the child had received a vaccination in the previous 48 hours. But coroners never mentioned vaccines on the death certificates, and doctors have been trained to gaslight parents. Yeah. Yep, they sure have, because my wife and I experienced this with our first child. The doctor gaslit us like we were crazy when we were questioning getting all these shots. So these guys are either dumb, complicit, and evil, or greedy, or all the above. I don't know. But when this is back, 1996, 97, and we're saying we're concerned about, the side effects of these shots. We're reading. Parents, we didn't have a lot then. Today, parents have a lot of resources and a lot of advocates. We were kind of sailing on our own back then. You remember those days, right, Dr. Lana?
Absolutely.
What do you make of what this detective is saying? 50% of these infant, SIDS death is within 48 hours of the vaccine.
Well, I think that correlates to the parents that talk to you after their son or their daughter was vaccinated, maybe when they're 6 months old or 18 months old. And if they don't, thank goodness, if they don't pass away from SIDS, the mother is bringing the child back into the doctor's office saying, my son or my daughter won't look at us anymore.
Right.
They won't babble anymore. They won't talk. They're screaming, they're crying because the child now has autism or Asperger's, or they're on the spectrum now because there is too much, there's just an extraordinarily large amount of toxic chemicals and a toxic load going into that baby's body, and worse, crossing the baby's blood-brain barrier. So the SIDS is correlating over to the autism story. And there's many doctors that will talk about this, pediatricians, medical doctors, research scientists. I don't know her, but Dr. Sherry Tenpenny in Ohio suffered greatly because she was speaking about this.
Yep.
Dr. Larry Palevsky is an amazing pediatrician, and he will not vaccinate anymore in his practice. And he's not vaccinated for many, many years. And he's a board certified pediatrician, and he says if the patients, in other words, the parents of the patients want to have their child vaccinated, they have to go to another pediatrician. He won't do it. So there's a lot of doctors that are talking about this now, but this doesn't surprise me at all.
God bless them, because I read where a pediatrician's office can lose $1 million a year in revenue by not doing the vaccines of children.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, we actually have a relative that I give them so much credit, and I would never ever mention names. Not my last name actually, but they were a board certified pediatrician, medical doctor. And after they saw what was going on, especially post COVID, they gave up their practice. They're in just another field. They are not practicing medicine. Can you imagine all those years, all that expense? You have a family, their spouse is also a doctor, but they are not a pediatrician anymore. They're like, I cannot do it. I cannot do it. The science is there. It doesn't have anything to do with politics or anything else. This is about intelligence and having some wherewithal and energy to go look at the science. It's right there in front of us. It's just extraordinary. I was trained by an incredible doctor around vaccines, and it's all there. The science is there. People are having fights at the holiday dinner table, talk about gaslighting, saying, half the family's crazy because they don't want any kind of, vaccinations or don't want to vaccinate their babies. And the other half of the holiday dinner table is, saying we would vaccinate everybody and everything, 24/7, right? But the science, just go back to the science. Nobody has to argue. The proof is there. It's just another weapon, and we all have to be smart, and we have to be our own health advocates, and we have to be, Dr. Mom and Dr. Dad for our own families, for sure.
Absolutely. It's really sad how my wife and I were talking the other day about someone that's a medical doctor and had to spend a lot of money and time getting their degree. And we're hearing that more and more of them are not happy in their work. They want out. They want to quit. They're sick of it. And I said to my wife, I know this, I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but I said, what's so ironic to me is the number of guys that got their medical degree, their law degree, and they want to do what I do. I cannot tell you the number of attorneys and medical doctors that are friends of mine that want to do what I do. And I didn't have to go get some big fancy degree and PhD to do this, right? It's really either something you can go to training, go to school, go to training, or you can be self-taught. And of course, in the area of worldview, there really wasn't a lot you could do when I was coming out of high school. Nobody was really talking about too much related to worldview. It was a little bit, but you couldn't go get a degree. But of course, now you can go do apologetics and worldview and whatnot. But I said to my wife, it's really ironic how many of these guys that go get these big degrees, spend years, lots of money, and at the end of the day, they want to do what I do. And I think that's a compliment. But number two, I think it's sadly a commentary on where these other fields are going. And what's great about my field is I can talk about what I want to talk about, right? I'm not controlled by some network that tells me what I can and cannot talk about. If I want to interview Dr. Lana and talk about vaccines or, being infected with like our next topic, injection by infection, I can do that. And I think it comes down to one key word: freedom. Freedom. And I don't think these attorneys, these doctors, these other accountants, some of them are accountants, who have these degrees, they don't feel the freedom. They are in a corporation that's saying, you're going to bill X number of hours a month, or you're never going to be a partner. And you're like, how is that humanly possible unless I have no life? You got it. Or you're padding your hours, And I warned about it in one of my books, a law professor who warned his students, when you get your law degree, many of you will go into the field and you will become people that you never thought you would become. And you will become very dishonest, and you'll pad your billing because that's what it takes to rise as a partner, to make the money you want. So you either work that many hours and have no life, or you pad your hours. And that's how it goes when you jump into the corporate world a lot of times, not every time. But then you got the doctors who are saying, I don't want to follow this protocol. The science says no. But the pediatrician office, the big insurance company that owns that firm is saying, or that pediatrician's office saying, we make $1 million a year giving these shots. Do you want to keep your job? So I think the key word comes back to freedom. What say you?
Absolutely. And, quickly, I did a keynote speech. This was at a university years ago. And the doctor that spoke after me was a medical doctor. And he's like, oh my gosh, I so related to your talk. And, we learn a tiny bit of that in medical school. And long story short, he said, would you like to, he says, gosh, I'd like to, maybe you could pick your brain and this and that. And you want to go to breakfast the next day. And we did. And he told me a story with tears in his eyes. He was fired from a hospital. Actually, it wasn't too long before this talk that we did. And he moved his family out west, and he wanted to teach diet and lifestyle intervention, what I teach and what I went to school for many years. And they told him absolutely not at this hospital. He was teaching cancer patients deep breathing exercises. He wanted to bring in certified yoga instructors to just teach stretching. And he wanted to rearrange the whole cafeteria for a more whole food dietary protocol for the hospital. And they fired him. And he said with tears in his eyes, he said, Lana, he said, I realized after my residency and I started practice, he said, the tools that we are given in medical school basically are used to slowly kill our patients. And I will never forget his words, not mine. And he had tears in his eyes. And he said, I actually had a nervous breakdown the year before, because it just hits you once you get into practice. Because you see patient after patient, their only toolbox is their pharmaceutical pad, and they take an oath just like I did to do no harm. But the pharmaceutical pad and the surgery is a tool. Drugs are a tool, chemo is a tool, radiation is a tool, and that's what medical school is. And there's a time and a place that you need those doctors, but you better know how to navigate that system, the questions to ask, how to interview those doctors. I mean, that's what I teach my patients. I literally teach them how to interview doctors and how to navigate the medical system, because you're going to have to do it. Hopefully not for yourself, because you're all awake and wise and watching Brandon, but you're going to have to navigate the system probably for a loved one that maybe doesn't know what you do.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's go to this last one. Infection by injection. 1875 postcard reveals smallpox vaccines caused smallpox. I'm not shocked by this. This is exactly what Dr. Judy Mikovich told me in 2020 when I started interviewing her. Look at this old postcard. I guess it's provided by the Society for Suppressing Compulsory Vaccination. And you can see the back of the card. And the bullet points, just a couple. Vaccination offers no protection against smallpox. In Birmingham last year, nearly 600 persons, mostly vaccinated, died of smallpox. Although the public vaccinator received in 1873 in fees and awards for its successful vaccination, and gives the amount. Newmarket, another over-vaccinated community, has lately been visited with an epidemic of smallpox. 2, it so lowers the vitality that they are rendered more liable to other diseases. Let's stop right there. Is another word for vitality your immune system? Your immune system is so lowered. Is that another word?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I studied with an incredible doctor, and they taught at a really, really large university. And people don't think about way, way back, decades and decades ago, people started to get healthier, not because of vaccines. Well, the proof is right there, what you just read. But think about it, everyone. There was sanitation. People started washing their hands with hot water and soap. There were toilets and plumbing and agriculture, and people started to take more showers and more baths than what hot water and soap will do for you, and good plumbing. And all of that came into play. And so people were living longer. They weren't getting sick. Children were not getting sick. It wasn't because they were riddled with these vaccines that was supposed to saving them. Sanitation came into play, and agriculture and plumbing and all of that. And people were not getting diseases because they were cleaner. And it's just that's a very, very simple fact that people don't think about, but they put all the gold into, these vaccines just saved the children and saved everybody. No, they didn't. They made it much, much worse. And parents lost children because of these chemical-laden injections.
They say great risk is incurred of contaminating their blood with loathsome and incurable maladies. This is amazing. Back in 1875.
I will look it up. And The sun, I will look this up and verify it next time because I don't want to say anything unless it's fact and I absolutely know what I'm talking about. But I know that, and I'll find the boy's name and actually the man that started giving these injections. I do believe his son, sadly, but his son died of smallpox, died of the vaccine. But I'll look that up for next time. But I remember learning that in school, but I want to verify the facts. It was awful. Actually killed his own son.
Before we run, let's talk about some ways to boost the immune system, as we always do here. I, of course, every day I take my 3, my Bella Grace, my Numi, and my Gatatana, which Melissa will bring me. I take those, okay, these 3 every day. And not only do I take it, but I give half a scoop to Dolly. Can we go to the Dolly cam? Because look at her. Does that look like a healthy dog to you, Dr. Lana?
She's beautiful. She's lean, has a beautiful coat. And you know what? She's peaceful. I mean, she's in a deep sleep, and you're out there saving the world, Brandon, and Dolly's in a deep sleep. So what a beautiful animal. We have saved a lot of animals with the God's perfect food, as I say, and glutathione. It is the trifecta. And I really mean that. If you have to think about it, if you have to go to a desert island, you want good, clean, pure water. And here you go. And it's easy to think about it. This is not about a product. It's about, we cannot breathe without glutathione. You can't breathe without glutathione. And this is like air in a bottle, oxygen in a bottle. And nutshell here, you started losing glutathione when you were about 20 years old. So it's not if you need to swish, you do. We all do.
Yep.
And the Gatatana is getting God's pure microscopic food in through your cell membranes to fuel your mitochondria so you can make ATP, energy, and so your cells can function. There's protein in here, omega-3s, omega-6s, amino acids, trace minerals. Do you know most of the symptoms many people are suffering from? Low trace minerals. It's the Gatatana, 1 to 2 scoops a day. Take it 10 minutes before breakfast or 10 minutes before lunch because you have an empty stomach and it's getting into your cells quickly. It's 90 billion plant cells in one tiny scoop. I would give this to every family member every single day. And you know the story. I got my mom's personality back. I helped her initially by getting glutathione in her system. She does the swish 3 times a day. And she takes a scoop of Gatatana every single day. And if you know anyone that has behavior issues, or they're a little angry, or people that are maybe aging, or maybe adolescents even, because this is pure microscopic food. When you get nutrition in the cells, it can help calm behavior. There's been amazing stories. Remember, hundreds of thousands of people have taken this in Canada for 12 years now. It's my honor, Brandon and Melissa's honor, David Hunter's honor, to get the Gatatana into the United States. They brought it here. We started in October of 2024. So we want all of you and your families to be able to take a scoop of God's pure nutrition here every day. But you're low in trace minerals, most of you that have any kind of symptoms, and this is getting your trace minerals back in your all of your cells from head to toe. And then the Bella Grace, last thing I'll say is I'm a big fan of this because it's real cat's claw that is shaved off the bark in the Amazon rainforest. And that is an extraordinarily safe and effective anti-inflammatory. The reason I love this, I know collagen and tight skin. Heaven knows I want that too. But another reason I love the Bella Grace is the astaxanthin crosses the blood-brain barrier and gets antioxidants into your brain. I kid you not, I would not go anywhere without making sure the glutathione, the Gatatana, and our wellness elixir.
And this brings us back around where we started, which was boosting our immune system. That lady doing that immunotherapy, boosting her immune system to, and now instead of dying of cancer, she seems to be living a great active life, and she boosted her immune system to fight those cells. And of course, we boost our immune system to take on the free radicals with that antioxidants across the brain-blood barrier and all of this. So this is, again, back to food as medicine and boosting your immune system to do what God meant it to do, right?
Absolutely. And the gaditana and glutathione can be for your pets. I mean, it's a family affair. That's for sure.
Yep, it is. It's a family affair. I don't know why she sleeps off the bed like that, but she loves to do it. So who can complain with it, right? All right, Dr. Lana, as always, hey, we're looking forward to having you with us at our fall conference, October 3rd and 4th here in the Mid-South.
It will be wonderful. Absolutely.
Hopefully we'll have a lot of victories to talk about with RFK Jr. and getting America healthy again and getting the 10,000 poisons and toxins out of our food supply and so much more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Lana. Appreciate you. Dr. Lana checking in tonight, and make sure you check out all of our sponsors on our sponsor page, because that's where you're going to find all of our great products, the Gatatana, the Numi, the Bella Grace, all of it and more at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Did you know that one of the doctrines that's now gaining mainstream within Protestant evangelicalism is the belief that hell is either not a reality or it is very, very temporary, meaning someone might die who doesn't know the Lord, who hasn't placed their faith and trust in Christ, the biblical gospel, believe in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and thou shalt be saved, right? That if that is something they have not done, believed in Jesus Christ for salvation, through Christ alone, faith alone, no worry, it's too bad they didn't do that. They'll go to hell, but they'll only go there and be tormented for a very short period of time, and then they'll be annihilated. Gone. Now that's called, I know it's a big word, annihilationism. Annihilationism. And you say, well, Brandon, why does this matter? Let me tell you why it matters. When you start to undermine the Bible and biblical theology and doctrine, the Bible, the Word of God, thus saith the Lord, guess what opens up next? Well, did God really say? Isn't that what Satan said to Eve, I should say, in the garden? We had Adam and Eve there, but the serpent appears to Eve and says, did God really say you should not eat of that fruit that is in the middle of the garden? Oh, come on. He knows that when you eat of it, you're going to be just like him. That's why he doesn't want you to eat of it. You're going to be like God. You'll decide what's right and wrong. You're going to have hidden knowledge that now only he has. Come on, take the fruit. Did God really say don't eat, don't touch that fruit? Well, when you start to undermine key doctrines, now it's like, well, maybe Jesus didn't mean that you have to come through him alone. Jesus in John says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes unto the Father except through me. Well, maybe that's not the way it is. Maybe at the end of the day, God is just going to reconcile all things to himself. And those who never called on the name of the Lord for salvation, believed in the death, burial, resurrection of Christ, they'll too be reconciled to God. Now we're into what's called, quote, Christian universalism. That's where this has gone. And then pretty soon, you have undermined the power of the gospel and the God-given ordained purpose of a local New Testament church, the proclamation of the gospel, the Great Commission, evangelism, discipleship, and you destroyed the churches in America and around the world. Satan's ultimate goal, right? Well, I want to bring on our religious Trojan horse reporter, Tom Littleton. Because as I'm studying through the book of Revelation on Sunday nights, I came across a guy whose name I know, we've talked about it before, who is now gone from saying, that's crazy, the idea of annihilationism. People go to hell and then after a period of time, they're just annihilated. He's gone from, in 2015, saying that's crazy talk, to saying, hey, I believe in it, and I think we are okay to say it's orthodox to believe in Christian universalism. But how did this happen? I'll tell you how, I think. A well-known Bible teacher apparently introduced his seminary students to a theologian. And he promoted this theologian, who maybe said some good things in some areas, but this well-known theologian was promoting annihilationism. And pretty soon, after this Bible teacher promotes this to his seminarians, and they find out about it, they're like, well, I really like that guy. I didn't know he was into annihilationism. Well, maybe that's a legitimate belief. And there you go. You just brought in the poison to the seminary. And now we know, well, like Jesus said, the philosophies and the ideas of the day. Don't be cheated by the philosophies of men that are not according to Christ. Joining me now is Tom Littleton. Tom, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Brennan. Good to be with you. I appreciate you having me, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity to delve into this topic because, as you said, this is just more of the old Luciferian suggestion, has God said? Yeah. And that's what we're dealing with from the book of Genesis to the book of Revelation. People that say they are Bible students, and many of them who carry degrees from very respected institutions, are among those who are questioning these issues. They question doctrinal issues, they question moral issues, and these two really go hand in hand, because if your doctrine is corrupting, so is your moral life, and vice versa. If your moral life is on the skids, you're going to start building a doctrine to accompany that. So, hey, these guys are pushing a lot of a social agenda on sexuality and other issues, so it's not surprising that they would venture into this idea of rethinking hell. That's what the movement is called. Part of that is as a result of Rob Bell, if you remember old Rob.
Who, by the way, was so funny not funny actually, in an ironic way. When I started writing about him and speaking about him in the early 2000s, particularly around 2005, I said Rob Bell sounds like Oprah Winfrey. This guy sounds just like Oprah Winfrey. And he's going into the mainstream of evangelicalism, Rob Bell. And do you know what? Eventually, he ended up working with Oprah Winfrey. I'm like, what? I didn't expect that to happen. I mean, I knew he was starting to sound like her, but he actually started working with Oprah.
He did, and he was quite popular with her audience, and of course, she's like the ultimate false prophetess of the airways, and she became a billionairess for all of her false teachings. She had the kind of the Oprah buffet. Talk about universalism. You could just come to the table and pick and choose from whatever religion, you wanted, like picking cuisine, and so that's where these guys.
Well, she's the one that said on her show when a person in the audience was pushing back on some of this, was obviously a Christian, that Jesus is the only way. Oprah, remember, it's on YouTube. Oprah says, Jesus couldn't possibly be the only way. He couldn't possibly. Remember that? That's a very famous clip of Oprah saying that. So you're right.
And, but those claims of exclusivity, they come from Jesus' own mouth. That's red ink stuff. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. He said, no man comes to the Father but by me. There is simply no other way. And that's by virtue of his life, his incarnation, his sinlessness, and then offering up that blood that no other could bring. So,
well, I want to get right into it so people understand why this is so important, because I was studying Revelation 14 the other night on my Sunday night Bible study. We got there, and it says that anyone who takes the mark of the beast, which is being set up in Revelation 13, the previous chapter. And then we get to Revelation 14, we actually got an angel that's flying across the sky, warning people, don't take the mark of the beast or worship his image. Because if you do, you are going to drink of the wine of the wrath of God. It's going to be poured out full strength. And you will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever. And that's what led me into this. I said, clearly the Bible's teaching that hell is forever and ever. And I don't know how anyone can not get that, because it says the smoke of their torment, okay? The smoke and the torment are tied together. The smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever. And yet there's these people called annihilationists. You go to hell for a period of time and you're annihilated. It's over. Well, I started researching that. And sure enough, I came across this article. Is annihilation an evangelical option? Written in 2015 by a guy you and I have talked about many times, Preston Sprinkle. And he says here, when I was nearing the end of seminary back in 2002, I'll never forget hearing that the great evangelical leader, John Stott, was an annihilationist. That is, he believed that hell does not consist of everlasting conscious torment. I remember thinking, what? I thought that John Stott was a Christian. He says, I then wrestled with how such a stalwart of the evangelical faith could have been an imposter all these years. Now, what happened. I know what happened because in my research the other day, I got into researching it. And you know what I found out? This Preston Sprinkle went from being against annihilationism to saying, since I have continued to study the topic of hell, he goes on to say, he says, and the more I study it, the more I see a good deal of biblical support for annihilation. I don't call myself a nihilist, however, and neither should you. I'm not there yet. But he thinks there's a lot of biblical support for it. So a well-known theologian, John Stott, is introduced to him. He's like, wait a minute, I didn't realize that guy believed in annihilationism. How could he even be a Christian if he believes that? To then questioning it and researching it. And then in 2022, remember 2015, he was like, what? 2022, he has a conference called Exiles in Babylon Conference, and they talk about hell, transgender identities, climate change. He did this with Francis Chan, two guys you and I've warned about for years. And wait a minute, now their theology has become so weak. Yeah, you already said it. Bad theology leads to bad morality. Theology and morality are tied together. So if you want to be a communist or a globalist and you want to get the church to quit talking about transgender, being against it, being against climate change, then being against open borders, being against communism, globalism, then infiltrate them with theology that emotionally is easy to accept, like the idea hell is not forever. Because when you say hell is not forever, that's very appealing to a lot of people who have maybe friends or family or parents or grandparents, children that you feel have died who never knew the Lord, never accepted the Lord. And believing in annihilationism, that might help them sleep better at night. But my theology isn't based on my feelings. But if you can infiltrate the church with that, using emotion and feelings, pretty soon bad theology now has you questioning the whole Bible. Well, sexuality, transgenderism, climate change, all of this, right? Well, this Preston Sprinkle in this 2022 conference said, quote, there's 3 Christian views of hell. By Christian, I mean views that have been held by Christians who hold a Christian orthodoxy and have different views of hell. There's the most familiar one, eternal conscious torment. I find that's the view that probably almost all of you, when you think of the idea of hell, this is what comes to your mind. That hell is a place in the afterlife where people who don't follow Jesus will suffer never-ending punishment. That's eternal conscious torment. Then there's the annihilation view, or sometimes called conditional immorality. This view also says there is a hell. It's a place of punishment. But when people go there, they die. They will cease to exist. There's no never-ending, ongoing, conscious torment. That doesn't happen, is what he's saying. Then, the third view is sometimes called Christian universalism. It's better titled ultimate reconciliation. That says that, and you have to distinguish between Christian universalism and non-Christian forms of universalism or pluralism, which would say, oh, all roads lead to, heaven or whatever you know. Jesus is one way, and Hinduism is one way, and even atheist is another way. That's radically different from Christian universalism, he writes, or ultimate reconciliation. Christian universalism says the blood of Jesus is so powerful that it can even overcome the unbelief of all humanity, and that God will ultimately reconcile all things, including all people, to himself, end quote. Wow. Tom, we just went with a seminary student who was introduced to John Stott, who he thought was a stalwart in the faith, finds out he's into annihilationism. You go to hell for a period of time, you're destroyed. Now the guy who was shocked by that initially has gone all the way to saying an orthodox view is everybody's going to get to God. God will reconcile everything, Christian universalism. And what is really should not be, well, it's not shocking to me, but where did this guy get his degree? He earned his degrees and his undergraduate and graduate degree at John MacArthur's, the Master's Seminary. And who do you think introduced Preston Sprinkle to this? Well, if he didn't introduce him, which I bet he did, he certainly reinforced John Stott to him. Because when you go to the website of Grace to You, John MacArthur's ministry, here he lists like 8 or 9 books. Here are a few of the books John MacArthur says have greatly influenced his life, had a great influence on his life. There is John Stott. Now, John Stott might teach some things you and I would agree with, but as soon as John Stott's teaching his works-based gospel, which he's known for in 1958-59, as soon as he's known for annihilationism, John MacArthur should have stopped feeding this to his seminarians, and he didn't. I blame John MacArthur for so much, and most people who are watching this that don't know this are shocked when I say this, but if you come to look past the PR, if you look past the sermons that sound so good and you actually do Bible study, you'll find John MacArthur twist the scripture nonstop. We have him on video denying the blood of Jesus Christ for salvation. Put that into YouTube. He denies the blood of Jesus Christ for salvation. John MacArthur has perhaps done more damage than someone like Benny Hinn or Creflo Dollar or any of these characters who are so obvious to so many. John MacArthur has risen from within and defended, and yet he has dragged more churches to be split, I believe, families to be split. I have a guy that who was listening to me out of the Twin Cities. He said, when you would say these things about John MacArthur, I thought you're crazy. He said, then I went to a church where one of his graduates was placed. This guy began to preach an ultimate works-based false gospel. The guy split the church, divided friends, longtime friends. He said, it is a poison. He said, now I realize, several years ago, I was listening to you. You were saying you thought John MacArthur was perhaps a false teacher. I thought House has lost his mind. He says, now, not only do I agree John MacArthur is a false teacher, I believe what he has done to the church across the world is just absolutely beyond what many people know or will ever understand, unless you actually pray and ask God to help you understand this. Now the floor is yours. Here is another example of a Trojan horse by introducing someone like John Stott to seminarians. And now tell our audience what Preston Sprinkle is doing.
Yeah, we have to see these guys, he and Francis Chan, in light of the fact both of them are graduates of Masters College, now known as Masters University, and Masters Seminary. These are probably the two most well-known guys. They achieved a pretty broad audience, especially Chan through the Gospel Coalition and through the Young, Restless, and Reformed. Well, both of these guys who people trust based on their pedigree, based on whose brand they wear. Now, I haven't been able to find out for sure, but I am thinking that it's very likely that graduates in theology degrees from Master Seminary receive some type of ordination. That means that these guys would also not only have credentials, but be carrying an ordination from Master Seminary. That's very possible. I don't know and haven't been able to get anyone to confirm that, but the point is these people are trusted because of that part of their pedigree. But here they've both been on this steady path into error and hell, and what you believe about hell and torment and the eternity of hell, the literal red ink words of Jesus. These are markers on your faith and on your journey. And if you are passing these markers, going beyond orthodoxy on something as black and white as hell and all that Jesus said about it, then you're going into all kinds of error. And both of these guys, Francis Chan, he left his church and moved his family to San Francisco, which is one of the most homosexual cities in the country, reportedly living in the Tenderloin district, which is one of their 3 or 4 main homosexual communities. And he began to slide left on the issue of homosexuality, saying Christians need to stop acting like it's such a bad sin or the worst sin. But Preston Sprinkle emerged among a group of activists from around 2013, 2014, to be one of the primary people and focused on giving voice to what he calls the LGBTQ conversation within the church. Now, he refers to a guy, and this is very key, Sprinkle refers to a guy named Mark Yarhouse as the Master Yoda of the LGBTQ conversation in the church, and who Mark Yarhouse is. If the people who have watched your program and watched you and I before would know, this guy is the interfaith leader in the American Psychological Association, who has helped frame the discussion around sexual orientation and gender identity, both of which are myths of the psychological community. They have framed the conversation around that for faith communities, in particular for evangelicals. And Mark Yarhouse is indeed this Master Yoda, as Sprinkle called him, and putting out the talking points, which, interestingly, things like you've probably heard same-sex attraction, that's just a new language for what they called non-practicing homosexual back in the years that a lot of the mainline denominations were falling over the abyss on this issue. But they would say these are people who are same-sex attracted, but they're committed to celibacy or to conservative Christian sexual ethic. They had a lot of language built around it. All of that did come out of John Stott's organization in 2010, the Lausanne movement, where they developed 5 specific same-sex attraction and homosexuality talking points through white papers. 5 different white papers presented at the 2010 South African Congress for Lausanne movement. That's out of the organization John Stott started. So they roll out these talking points, and by 2013, 2014, you have organizations like the Gospel Coalition, co-founded by Tim Keller, and also the Southern Baptist ERLC, who was run at the time by Russell Moore, and who is also a member of the Gospel Coalition. They roll out all of these activists to discuss or carry on this conversation, and they all have the talking points of Lausanne's white papers and this Master Yoda, Mark Yarhouse. Remember, the American Psychological Association depathologized homosexuality in 1974 in order to say it was no longer a mental illness and that it was okay, so that they could encourage increased homosexuality related to the Jaffe memo and the conversations with the UN Population Council and Planned Parenthood to begin this long progression of normalizing homosexuality. So now we see this being taken and framed and brought to the church. And I can show you high levels of coordination for this. It's in my article. If we have time, we can discuss a bit of it. But there was high level coordination for the seminaries to train people like Sprinkle and like Francis Chan and these Gospel Coalition guys like David Platt. They began to roll out this discussion and these talking points, all based on the idea of sexual orientation, which they say is fixed, and then gender identity, which they say is fluid. So the problem being, these talking points flooded the landscape within evangelicalism, and Preston Sprinkle was one of the key voices. He developed this Center for Faith, Sexuality, and Gender, and Yarhouse has his own center, which was at the early days of this was at the CBN Seminary Regent, and then they moved it to Wheaton, where he was from. So a guy named Stanton Jones and Mark Yarhouse have this center, the hub there at Wheaton College. As you know, Billy Graham's alma mater, it's gone off the rails on woke and a lot of these issues. But you see these central figures, in particular Preston Sprinkle, they carry seminary degrees from Master's Seminary, and
now, let me ask
others.
You, since they carry degrees from Master's Seminary, and John MacArthur is known for calling out, clear-minded charismatics. I call them clear-minded charismatics. I have friends of mine that they totally denounce the false prophets, the false apostles. They denounce so many of these word of faith heretics, right? But they do believe certain gifts are still for today. I mean, I've interviewed some of the Pentecostal pastor, a particularly Pentecostal pastor out of Iowa, who's like, these guys are false prophets. They're horrific. Now, he himself believes in speaking in tongues and a few other things that I don't believe in. But he's a strong defender that these are false prophets. These new Apostolic Reformation guys. These guys would come out against Kenneth Copeland and Benny Hinn and all these guys. Well, John MacArthur, sadly, through his Strange Fire conference a few years ago, took these good evangelistic charismatics and threw them right in there. So John MacArthur, I mean, if he doesn't like a ham sandwich, he calls it out. So I'm sure John MacArthur by now has called out his graduates, Francis Chan and Preston Sprinkle, right?
No. Actually, he has not. And that's part of the great mystery here. How can you let these guys be wearing your brand, carrying your degrees, and very likely your ordination? That would mean that they've laid hands on them, recognizing their calling and their gifts, and sent them forth from their entity, their ministry. Certainly carrying the degrees alone, even without the ordination, they have the right to say, look, we're going to put some space between us and you because you've left the reservation on hell, and now you're openly promoting LGBTQ Christianity. We have a problem.
Christian universalism.
Yeah, Christian universalism, but nothing has happened. As a matter of fact, it's kind of the elephant in the room when you bring this topic up, because you and I have really tracked with a lot of this stuff that the Gospel Coalition is putting out. All this, these guys were studying critical theory in these seminaries. That's the problem. They were studying queer theory, gender theory, and feminine theory, and even feminist theology. And that's what we see at masters. And you can't find these guys' academic papers like you can Nate Collins, who founded Revoice, who went to Southern Seminary, Al Mohler School. Mohler and MacArthur are really good buddies. And MacArthur never joined the Gospel Coalition, but these guys did.
But he sure spoke. He sure shared the platform at Together for the Gospel with a bunch of the biggest players for years and years and years and years, and put them on his Masters or on his Grace to You, Grace Church platform, including recently John Piper, who's totally teaching for final salvation. One must slay sin and pursue holiness. Slaying sin in your life is great. Romans 6, Romans 8, but that's not how you get to salvation. That's called sanctification. Justification is instant, right? But he says for final salvation, you must slay sin and pursue holiness. Well, again, you're confusing justification from sanctification, right? So you got a false gospel. Piper says Christians shouldn't own guns. Piper has come out against many of the conservative biblical principles of the day in the public policy arena. He's defended Black Lives Matter, taking a knee during the national anthem. He has promoted anti-Semitism, I believe clearly, with the stuff he's saying about Israel and replacement theology. But there's John MacArthur putting him back up on his church platform about a year ago, over and over. So John MacArthur can say what he wants, and he's very good at deflection and his junkyard dog, Phil Johnson. But the reality is, don't listen to what they say. Listen to what John MacArthur does. Listen to who he surrounds himself with. He surrounded himself with the Gospel Coalition people. He surrounded himself with the Together for the Gospel people that are pushing reparations, people that are pushing LGBTQ Christian queer, people that are pushing all of these ideas we're telling you about, Christian homosexuals, Al Mohler's people that he's, given degrees to. I mean, it is a rat's nest and a woodpile. But don't try to tell those people that are followers of John MacArthur the truth, because most of them will never hear it. I know one guy's a medical doctor. And when I presented some of this stuff to him, he was a friend of mine. He said, here's what he said. You ready? When I presented all this stuff about John MacArthur, which a lot of it's in my book, Marxianity. Here's what this medical doctor said. You mean, Brandon, my entire family has got to question the man that built our theology? That's a direct quote. And I said, but see, that's the problem, Doc. You allowed a man to build your theology, not the Bible. And John MacArthur's theology is not coming from the Bible. Does he say some things I agree with? Yep. Does he say some things that are right on? Yep. But that's Satan's ploy. Satan's ploy is to have a truth and error, and maybe more truth than error, but enough truth to gain credibility and then bring in and start denying the blood, as John MacArthur has done, to teach a false works-based gospel. John MacArthur's like, well, you guys are all into easy believism. Really? Where is that in the Bible? Show me in the Bible where Jesus is talking about easy believism. All I see is people who are saved are not saved. But John MacArthur is a master, and his people are masters at using masking terms to set up snares or traps or debates against those they disagree with. But this guy, this doctor's like, you want me to question the man that built my entire family's theology? And that's where the vast majority of MacArthur's defenders are. They have to rethink their entire theology, some of them for 40, 50, 60 years of their life, Tom Littleton. Yep. And some of them are just not spiritually willing to do that.
Right. It's sad. And, you know, they need to lay the foundation with God's word alone. They need to put the books down. They need to put away the sermon tapes and the podcast and just get back to the word of God and prayer and build their theology based on God's revelation of himself and his son, Jesus. And, you know, these systems of theology tend to be infectious like that. They're built around men and built around men's thoughts, and people elevate those even above the Word of God itself. It is a serious error. And look where it's led MacArthur's two prominent disciples to. And I mean, if you can't embrace the reality of hell, then you don't understand the holiness of God. That's your problem.
Yep.
And you don't understand the depths of the corruption of sin on us. And, you know, we were created with an eternal soul. And that's fundamental, foundational to understanding salvation, that we have a destination, a destiny eternally. And it's either going to be in heaven through Christ, through faith in him, or rejected from God's presence and for eternity, and to inhabit that eternity, not have our consciousness erased. And then this idea that we're all going to end up in the same place, no matter what, you know, that what we have there is back to the big lie, getting us to question something as fundamental as black and white as hell does come back. Has God said, well, if he didn't say that, then you are free to kind of make this up on your own, whatever suits you, whatever fits you. Ironically, with this LGBT conversation, you know, you and I have gotten in a lot of debates and conversation with people over this issue. And again, it's so black and white in the scripture. How do you get around Romans 1? People, how do you get around Genesis 19? But yet they're making their way into this conversation as trained activists sent out of our seminaries and skilled in manipulation and what I would say is deception, whether they are just deceived and deceiving others unwittingly, or they are deceiving and being deceived at the same time. These guys are activists to move the church away from this solid anchor in God's word and an understanding of God's holiness. And if you're going to embrace an unorthodox, unbiblical view of hell, and you're going to embrace an unorthodox view of creation, of sexuality, of gender, then you are well beyond the shaky boundaries and slipping into apostasy, which is something that people don't believe can really happen. But in reality, the fact that people will not question these teachers is like the biggest red flag of all.
Yeah, indeed. Amen and amen. And if you can undermine theology, then you can undermine morality. That's how we started out, right? Bad theology is tied to bad morals, right? Moral failure and theological failure go hand in hand. You want the church in America to accept the LGBT, the climate change, the agenda of climate change, which is really socialism, open borders. You want them to accept the idea of all of this. Start attacking the foundational doctrines of the church. Pretty soon, that theological doctrinal failure will lead to their moral failure in policies. And then you have your religious Trojan horse. And that's what you and I have been warning about. That's why we bring you on to do these religious Trojan horse updates. You want more on this? There it is at 30piecesofsilver.org, 30piecesofsilver.org. Tom, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, man. Take care.
Tom Littleton checking in tonight. Appreciate Tom and his willingness to do that. And again, folks, we're here calling it out according to the scripture, not out of arrogance. We're not perfect. We're not perfect. Brandon House's theology is not perfect. We're all works in progress. That's sanctification. But I do know this. I know that the Bible is very clear about what it takes to be saved. And I know what the Bible says about heaven. I know what it says about hell. I know what it says about sexuality. I know what it says about the function and purpose of government, reward the righteous, punish the wicked. I know the Bible talks about God draws the borders of nations. So while we aren't perfect, we do know that we don't have to be perfect to stand for truth. And that's all we're doing here, folks. Is simply saying, don't let these guys come in, corrupt the good theology, the view of God, the character and nature of God, and his doctrine found in the Bible, corrupt it in order to bring the church away, and then corrupt their morals to get them to buy into socialism and all the other isms of the day. And that's all we're doing. The Bible says, beware of those men who have risen from within. The Bible says to point them out, to mark them, those men who've risen from within, who draw away the disciples after themselves. And that's exactly what we're looking to do, because we don't want anyone deceived, and certainly not deceived about what it means to have eternal life. That's an eternal issue. Hey, if you appreciate what we're doing, we need your support. WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com. You also find our mailing address there. You can roll the music, guys. Let's call it a night. WorldviewFoundation.com. And if you want to support us, again, through the mail, you'll find it right there. WorldviewFoundation.com. Okay? Hey, get some of these cards. They're free. The free business cards. Get the free business cards. Ship them. We'll ship them right to you, free of charge. And you pass them out to family and friends, people you meet. You run out of them, order up another 20. We've now sent out what they tell me is 12,000 of these free business cards available at worldviewstore.com. Hey, as always, thank you for watching. Till next time, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brandon House.
And welcome. Welcome to the broadcast on this April 1st, 2025. This is a very big day for the country. But how many Americans are aware of what a big day this is? And it all centers on the great state of Wisconsin. Many people on TV and radio, print, are talking about the state of Wisconsin. And of course, thanks to VCY America, we're blanketing Wisconsin today. Now, we don't endorse candidates. We can't do that due to our classifications. But we can certainly talk about the issues, help you be informed, and then encourage you to go vote your conscience. But this is a big election today in Wisconsin. And it's one that everybody in the country should be paying close attention to, because it will impact every one of you that is hearing my voice today. Because if you have the Supreme Court in Wisconsin make one decision over another related to voter ID and redistricting, then you're talking about who controls the White House, who controls Congress. You're talking about how many members of each party are represented as you redistrict. So this is a big deal in Wisconsin today. I want to talk a little bit about that. Of course, open up the phone lines about it, as well as some other things in the news as well. Here's an article over at my friend Pamela Geller's website. Milwaukee officials handle ballots in secret back rooms with no observer access in critical Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Are they really already involved in things they shouldn't be doing? Well, the article says the Wisconsin Supreme Court race is no local, inconsequential election in a battleground state. That's right. Quote, the Supreme Court election is ground zero. Every conservative voice should be sounding the alarm. End quote. The Democrats are trying to redraw the districts in Wisconsin to remove 2 House seats. That's what this whole Supreme Court justice race is about. So I really want to emphasize to people out there, if you're in Wisconsin, get out and vote, end quote. I'm not going to finish the rest of who he's telling you to vote for because that's not what we do here. But that was Elon Musk. Elon Musk, I saw a video, was in Green Bay the other night. Wisconsin, you're getting a lot of national attention today. And apparently, some members of Congress and the Senate and the House and the Senate are openly admitting that they want to see this race go a certain direction so they can redraw these lines and then steal 2 House seats and maybe change the balance of power. Yeah. That's over at worldviewreport.com, your daily aggregated news site. We put that up over there. There's a great article today also at The Federalist. The Federalist has a great article out today. In a Supreme Court election, Wisconsin voters will decide voter ID question. While Wisconsin Supreme Court election is in the national spotlight, there's an important election integrity issue on Tuesday's ballot as well. So there are 2 big issues, folks, in the state of Wisconsin that will impact every one of us in the country. Because we're talking about, well, Wisconsin being a swing state. We're talking about the Electoral College here. The Federalist goes on to state, in fact, election law watchdogs will tell you that the Supreme Court race and referendum on enshrining the Badger State's voter ID law into Wisconsin Constitution go hand in hand. Quote, they really are bound together in this election. That's what Annette Olson, chief executive officer of the Madison-based McIver Institute, said. She told the Federalist. The conservative think tank has been advocating for the election integrity ballot question for years. It's taken a while to get here. Proposed amendments to the state's constitution must be approved in 2 consecutive sessions of the legislature. The Republican-controlled Assembly and Senate have passed the measure twice. Now the question is in the hands of the voters. Ballot questions do not require the approval of the governor, which would have been the death knell for the voter ID provision. Democrat Governor Tony Evers, a dutiful servant of the far left, surely would have vetoed it, says the writer. Here's the question on the ballot for those going to vote today in Wisconsin. Quote, shall Section 1M of Article 3 of the Constitution be created to require that voters present valid photographic identification verifying their identity in order to vote in any election, subject to exceptions which may be established by law, end quote. If voters approve the Wisconsin Constitution will state that, quote, no qualified elector may cast a ballot in any election unless the elector presents valid photographic identification that verifies the elector's identity and that is issued by this state, the federal government, a federally recognized American Indian tribe, or band in this state, or a college or university in this state, end quote. The article says that voters who aren't able to present a valid photographic ID on election day will be allowed to cast a provisional ballot. But valid ID must ultimately be presented in order for the ballot to count. Well, obviously, President Trump is watching this. He tweeted out today, Wisconsin, there's a very important referendum, question 1 on the ballot to amend the state constitution to require voter ID. This and other election integrity measures, including banning drop boxes and same-day voting with paper ballots, can only happen if you get out and vote today. And he's throwing his weight behind a certain candidate running for Supreme Court and claiming that there's a radical leftist with a history of letting child molesters and rapists off easy. So, he's calling on the folks in Wisconsin to get out and vote. 2 big issues today. Voter ID being enshrined in the state's constitution and the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, which you know is going to be making rules and regulations related to redrawing the district lines. So there you go. Wisconsin, the eyes of the nation are on you today. We'll get your thoughts on this. We open the phone lines. Saw a very interesting article over at Yahoo, Associated Press today. Here was the headline: White House abruptly fires career Justice Department prosecutors in latest norm-shattering move. Well, the headline is so biased. Again, you have to ask yourself, is the AP still getting money from somewhere in the deep state to put out deceptive, lying headlines? Were they offering up this kind of headline during the 4 years of the Biden regime? When it comes to norm-shattering moves, you mean like using the DOJ as your jackbooted thugs for a political party? Going after moms at school board meetings? Going after pro-lifers, Christians, Catholics that go to the Latin Mass, listing them through the DOJ, overseeing the FBI as potential domestic terrorists? Where was the norm-shattering move headline from the Associated Press then? I think we all know why these groups got money. I think we all know why they were being paid USAID money. In fact, the article said, the recent firings of career Justice Department lawyers by the White House is a sign of President Trump's tightening grip over the law enforcement agency known for its long tradition of political independence, end quote. Really, AP? Did the Biden regime leave the DOJ alone? During those 4 years, did it have political independence? No, we all know that's not true. The DOJ, using the FBI and other agencies, concocted their Russia collusion during the Obama years. And then during the Biden years, they continued that. And they used the DOJ, and they used people from the DOJ that they shipped over to other places. Oh, I don't know, maybe like to other state attorney general's offices or prosecutors' offices to go after Donald Trump, go after electors. Really, the AP, the Associated Press, I guess they believe the average American is so misinformed, so brainwashed, that the average American would read this headline and read the first paragraph and now believe that Donald Trump is a dictator in waiting. He wants to take the long-standing political independence of the DOJ and tighten his grip around it for his own gain. And do you know how many Americans will believe this? Do you know how many, I hate to say it, you know how many baby boomers are buying this? Because a lot of them still get their news from the traditional news sources. They still read the papers. They still watch cable news. They will believe it. They will buy it. Now, there's a lot of them that have awakened, and they're not buying it anymore. And you would think that groups that just got their money cut off from USAID would try to now become real, legitimate outlets for news and information in order to increase their viewership, their readership, because apparently they have to now compete in the market of free enterprise. That is, unless, of course, these rulings by the federal judges have restored this USAID funding for the time period, and maybe the gravy train is still going. But at some point, these groups are going to have to make it based on actually producing something that an audience wants to learn about, read about, and be informed about. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make in marketing, in my opinion, is not having a demographic. that you are seeking to serve. We have a demographic. Long ago, we decided we were going to offer up news and information and programming to people interested in how a Christian worldview applies to all areas of life. We decided that we were going to go after a more intelligent audience, not an audience that was easily emotionally manipulated or energized by something that's an inch deep and a mile wide. And when they do that, they thought, well, we'll attract a much bigger audience by keeping it simple. House, he gets too deep, uses big words like Fabian socialism and communitarianism and postmodernism, and nobody can keep up with that. So we'll keep it real simple and attract an audience. And I said, go do that. There's plenty of you doing that. What we're gonna do is go for thinkers. Readers are leaders. Now, let me ask you this. Who's reading this garbage by the AP? We'll be right back. We're not changing courses. Now, we are who we are. We're committed to the truth that we are committed to. Worldview Tube is a broadcast network that I started in 2006, but it's based on my 35 years as an author and speaker and commentator. Worldview Tube is here to defend the truth